Welcome to Night Shadows. I'm Stuart Best, where the paranormal is normal, where that which you thought you knew, you didn't, and where the future can be known if you know exactly where to look.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in and listening. A lot going on around the world, wars, rumors of wars, etc., etc., etc. Hi, Larry. How you doing?
Hey, Stuart. Thanks for having me.
Well, where do we start? Maybe this attempt to remove Trump, one of, I think it's Rodney Brown, as an evangelist, and I listened to a clip where he said that the deep state basically didn't say who it was, but he had talked to a high-ranking, I guess, congressman or senator who said that the plans were now underway to eliminate Trump, to take him out. And when the senator or congressman said something like, "What do you mean, take him out?" The evangelist asked him, "What do you mean by that?" And he says, "Well, take him out." So I guess reading between the lines, one would say either they have a plan underfoot to legally remove him, or they intend to assassinate him. Now, of course, this is coming on the heels of this new law that removes Trump from power. What do you think about all this? This is heating up to where it could turn hot real quick.
Yeah, I've taken tests before. I recently took a test with the FCC on ham licensing, and one of the questions, it's very interesting, is I took that test, you asked about which Plan A or Plan B or Plan C. A lot of times the answers, Stuart, are all of the above.
Yes. So if they're going to remove him from power suddenly, was the key word, that he would suddenly be gone. I wonder if it has any ties to this new law that they're trying to push. It's called the Countering Iran's Destabilization or Destabilizing Activities Act of 2017. And it's called that to keep the American people from knowing its true nature. Introduced into the U.S. Senate, passed by a 98-2. And the final version posted on the U.S. House of Representatives, they claimed last night, whatever last night was, very soon, I guess, maybe a day or two ago, shows that its true aim or goal, as more than 80% of it is devoted solely to taking all power away from President Trump, while at the same time virtually declaring open war against Russia.
Well, that's great.
Go ahead.
I was just going to mention that's very interesting that you said that, because apparently the swamp voted for it, 98-2. I would say the swamp voted for the bill. And I do know the only bill that I've heard that was passed is a sanctions bill, which this may be dovetailed into that bill, a sanctions bill against Russia, Iran, and North Korea, and it supposedly has been passed with the implications or the structure of its writing that the president cannot invalidate it or remove it or use it as a tool. So basically, it's exactly what you said, Stuart. They're passing a law, and the only law. They're not passing a law for the American people or to help the American people. The swamp is passing a law to keep the swamp in power. And actually, it's Congress, and from what I can see, it's Congress and the Supreme Court taking and removing power from the executive branch. And I think that's where we are. And I heard something really interesting. I'd like your opinion on it. they were talking on Fox today, and they were saying it's never in history has a president that has left office opened a shadow government office down the street from the White House to run a shadow government against the incoming president of the United States. And now I don't have to declare that Obama did that. We know by all the evidence is there that he did, and that this is operating and running, and it's being funded by George Soros, who they report has invested millions and millions into this move against Trump. This is sedition. This is actually what brings down governments and brought down governments around the world, and it's a tool of the CIA. We are in a very critical moment in history, Stuart.
She says on this article, President Obama signed Executive Orders 13660, 13661, 13662, 13685, 13694, 13757, imposing sanctions on Russia, which the executive branch has the power to do. But for the first time in American history, the U.S. Congress, as the legislative branch, takes these executive orders signed by Obama and orders President Trump not to ever remove them, thus effectively negating his ability to conduct foreign policy. Then it says even worse. The new law also contains a section titled Imposition of Sanctions with respect to persons engaging in transactions with the intelligence or defense sectors of the government of the Russian Federation, and forbids Trump, the Pentagon, and all U.S. intelligence agencies from cooperating in any way with Russian intelligence agencies or the military, including battling Islamic terrorists. And it goes on and on and on, effectively prohibiting Trump from doing anything. So I guess this is just, again, I don't know, what do you call that? Sedition, treason? What do you call that?
Yeah, that's sad. And then of course, Chappis, who has left the Intel Committee and left Congress, has came to Fox, and today, refreshingly, for the first time, allowed to speak out. And when they were asking why Trump is continually hammering Sessions, he came out and bluntly said that Sessions apparently was sent in as a deep state controller as the Attorney General under Trump, and then recused himself from taking care of the Trump administration, and actually is allowing all the attacks to come on to the Trump administration and the Trump family without any problems at all, and is also, Attorney General Sessions, is holding back information on Hillary from coming out to the Intel committees or the Congress, and so he is protecting the deep state. So there you go. I don't believe ever in history have we seen a scenario like this. The only thing was recently I read a book. I pulled it back out again and read it again, God's Chaos Candidate by Lance Wallnall. And he indicated this is what's coming. And he said Donald Trump will be the chaos candidate because he will bring chaos and he will come with a wrecking ball. And I believe, Stuart, we are beginning to see the swing back from Trump and his administration, those that are loyal to him. And, of course, they're not all loyal. And the wrecking ball, the interesting thing is, Stuart, if actually, according to Isaiah 45, Trump is another Cyrus sent in, the wrecking ball. Have you ever seen what a wrecking ball does to the structures that it comes against? So all I can tell, really, the people of faith is to tighten that seatbelt. We're about to see something we could not even imagine in our wildest imagination.
Yeah, I think it says, according to the report, the Foreign Intelligence Service has been reporting that specialized U.S. military units and American federal police forces have been flooding into Washington, D.C. region, Virginia and Maryland, preparing for the great event. And that perhaps has been most accurately described by the globally known charismatic Christian preacher, evangelist Rodney Howard Brown, who yesterday warned his tens of millions of followers of a plot to take down President Trump. He is the head of Revival Ministries International, and anyway, he's the one who went in and got the Christians to lay hands on Trump. Remember that? Just a little bit ago? Where they all went into the White House and prayed over him? Now, that's kind of interesting.
I do remember that, and I pulled out the old book from Thomas Horn on the Path of the Immortals, and I read again the prophecy of the man that comes, the true white brother that comes in the end times with the red cap. And I thought, somebody's going to have to show me something different if that ain't him.
Yeah. Well, we're coming up on something that Pastor Howard Brown revealed that this senior U.S. congressman had been in office since 1996 and had also warned him that there's nothing we can do to stop it, and whose plot, to do so was being planned by the deep state that has been trying to destroy Trump since the first day he won the presidency. And I did listen to Rodney Brown, and that's exactly what he did say. And here's some other kind of things that are interesting. Of the greatest crime committed by President Trump against his deep state enemies, necessitating his sudden removal, is his plan to end all illegal U.S. wars of aggression so that he can use the trillions of dollars spent on this madness to rebuild his own nation, with one of his own top military leaders, Special Ops Command Chief of the U.S. Army, General Raymond Thomas III, acknowledging that American forces are fighting in a sovereign Syria where they will likely have no ability to stay if their presence is questioned in the terms of international law. General Thomas adding, we're bad day away from the Russians asking, why are you still in Syria? So this thing it seems like it's coming unglued from within.
Well, it's very interesting, Stuart, because General Jack Keane, and I'm sure you're familiar with him.
Oh, yes.
Very heavily credentialed individual, said today, because of recent, one of our recon planes was pushed around in the sky today over the South China Sea. And General Jack Keane said, I hate to tell people this, he said, but, under the last 4 administrations, we didn't exert our authority. And he said, now, suddenly there's a Trump administration, and he said, what it appears to be a standoff at the North Korean peninsula. We are about to go to war with North Korea, and that means we are going to have to go to war with China. And he said Congress is declaring we go to war with Russia. So there's the future, Stuart. There's where the New World Order is moving us to, and that is where the deep state is pushing us to.
Yeah. Oh, they got to have their war. And, of course, what's fascinating and interesting, I guess you could say, this is coming up on the 9/23 date, and there's another date because the sun is acting quite strange, and the CME that was released there was an X-class flare, I guess, but they say that the coronal hole that all this stuff is coming from will be rotating around to us on August 6th and 7th. It will be almost dead center towards Earth. And that's an interesting date because August 6th and 7th is the little-known Tu B'Av love feast of Israel, where they go out and select their bride. So there's a lot of stuff going on here that people probably aren't paying much attention to. But I got an article here where it says that China is preparing for a crisis along the North Korean border. And one of the articles that says that they feel that they're going to probably have to invade if we attack. But they're preparing for even nuclear fallout. Isn't that interesting?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So anyway, he says time is running out. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to mention and get your opinion on this because the latest I've heard about possibly the Pentagon and its direction for North Korea, they're working to establish a regime change. And if I know Keane and his ruling party, there's only one way you're going to have a regime change. Stuart, what do you say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It says in this article, China has long worried that economic collapse in North Korea could cause a refugee crisis, bring the United States forces to its borders, create a united, democratic, and pro-American full Korea. China's fears of a U.S. military intervention have risen since January because of Kim's test firing the missiles. And one of their generals, Chinese generals, says time is running out, and we can't let the flames of war burn into China. So that's kind of an interesting remark. And it says China should demand that any U.S. military attack results in no nuclear contamination, no U.S. occupation of areas north of the demarcation line, and no regime hostile to China allowed to be established in the north. If war breaks out, China, without hesitation, will occupy northern parts of North Korea, take control of North Korean nuclear facilities. So there you go. That's what they're planning. I think, again, I think it's a trap. What do you think?
Yeah, it's amazing, and what's so amazing too, Stuart, as you've said, we're going along with all these. All of this is in this timing or this time frame of not only the eclipse that's coming, but also this heavenly sign, this star sign, and
yes.
And you found out some more on that, some more amazing stuff, the numbers.
Yeah, there's an awful lot to this thing, and it always is verified. I'm going to scroll down here and see if I can't find some of the stuff. If you go into Genesis, I think it's 1:14, which is code for 4:11. It says, "Look to the skies." And if you go into Psalm 19:1, which is code for 9:11 rather than 4:11, it says the same thing. So those numbers, 4:11 and 9:11, keep popping up in the scriptures over and over and over again. And it's just kind of fascinating how all of this is actually being worked out. The sign is only above the horizon in Jerusalem on that day, 9/23. Guess what? Between 11 and 4 p.m. That's a 4:11. And these things pop up over and over and over again. In Genesis 1:14, which is an 11:4, or 4:11 rather, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky above proclaims his handiwork. Well, 4:11 was the time when those two comets passed over Satan's head, one in 1996, one in 1997. Forming a cross in the heavens. So all of this is orientated towards 9:23. There's no question about it. And if you go to Revelation 4:11, you go into King James, "Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for thou hast created all things for thy pleasure. They are and were created." So there's another 4:11. I mean, it just keeps going on and on and on. So anyway, I think it's getting very, very serious, and I think it's going to get really serious in the very immediate future. There is so much dovetailing into this thing, and I still can't tell people this is the rapture of the church. But I can tell you it's definitely a pivot point, and it could very well be if the concept of Israel not having anything to do with the church, which according to Daniel it doesn't, because it's the whole last 7 years, it says in Daniel, are for thy holy city and for thy people. So this is the wrap-up of Israel and returning to the Abrahamic and Davidic covenants, time of Jacob's trouble, if you want to call it that. And remember what Jesus said, "For as a snare shall it come upon all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth." But, you know, it's something where people are supposed to be watching the skies, watching what's going on earth, and what's going on in Israel. They seem to be having a tremendous time over there of trouble.
Oh, yeah, there's a real crisis in the Middle East. Matter of fact, the UN Security Council was meeting today on a crisis situation between Jordan and Israel, and also Israel and the Temple Mount and the Palestinians and all the Arab countries. And, I mean, this thing is really ratcheting up quickly. Of course, there's a standoff between Jordan and Israel because some Jordanians attacked the embassy there in Amman, the Israeli embassy, and the Israeli guards killed them. And so now, the Jordanians have blocked off the Israeli embassy, and they're holding them, I guess, in a way, diplomatically hostage. They're not allowing anyone to evacuate or leave there. And, of course, Netanyahu says they will leave there. And so there's a standoff there. Now, the Jordanians also were in charge of the Temple Mount, which after the Hezbollah-led terror attack, on the Temple Mount, they sent in troops that secured it. Well, there's a big war about to start over that. And then, of course, Israel is claiming that Iran is behind Hamas and the Hezbollah attacks. And so you really got to ratchet it up. There's a massive call-up of IDF troops. And, of course, I don't know the outcome of the UN situation, but it's fairly troublesome. But I did want to mention one thing, Stuart. There was I don't know if you got to hear it. I haven't heard it, but I did get a note that Cliff High and the web bots have got new information or data talking about some type of hit on the economy or the dollar about the time of the eclipse. Have you heard anything on that?
Other than what you just said, no. I know people have mentioned it. Some of these independent gurus on finances have mentioned something about the 21st of August. But other than that, I don't know how they know unless this is inside information. But what is interesting, really, is when the Israeli police took control of the Temple Mount, it was exactly 70 days to 9/23.
Wow.
So we got all these things that are coming into play now. And what was also interesting is the first atomic bomb was called Trinity, and it was 49 years ago. Guess what the UN did on the very day? United Nations votes to ban nuclear weapons. So you got all, excuse me, You got all this trouble brewing, the UN getting in the middle of everything, and it's beyond. Let me put it to everybody this way: it is beyond coincidence. The Lord is desperately trying to reach everybody, and I don't know if He's having a lot of luck, but I think we're heading for a major, very nasty future, starting probably in 923 and thereafter. And like I said, I can't promise anybody that they're going to get raptured, but I can say that if the pre-trib or at-trib concepts of the guys that are working this theology are right, then the church is going to be gone, and the age of grace will be over. Because Revelation 2 and 3 is all about the churches. And chapter 4, you never hear about them again. You have the trumpet, and then Jesus says, I'm going to show you the things that are hereafter. Hereafter what? Hereafter the age of grace is closed and the church has been removed. So I guess we don't really know, but there's one other thing, too. There's a comet. I don't know if I got time to really explain it, but there is a comet that comes in and impregnates. It looks just like a sperm, and it impregnates Virgo, and then immediately thereafter, Jupiter goes into the womb. Isn't that amazing? First time ever that Congress has ever, or that comet has ever done that. It's just one more sign that we indeed are headed into something very, very special and very unique. And I still think it's about a fake arrival. It's an arrival of the fallen ones, but it's going to fool an awful lot of people. Anyway, what else have you got?
Well, I was watching Jim Baker's show today, who had Thomas Horn on, and it's very interesting, a comment he made, because they were talking about the troubles of Trump and how long could he last. And, of course, Franklin Graham recently said he'll last long enough to get God's agenda done. That's how long he'll last. And, of course, Tom Horn chimed in and said, besides that, he says, we've got a window here in America. He said, a window because of Trump to simply do what we need to do to get our job done as the faithful. And he said, I don't know where the church is. They don't have a voice. They're not talking. But he said there's a remnant needs to get their work done. And that really struck a chord with me, that we're really in a crisis time now. If the Lord actually puts sway behind that wrecking ball, you're going to see stuff you've never imagined begin to happen in Washington and the states that are resisting.
Yeah, it's going to be something to watch, this war. And in Revelation 12 with the star sign, if you scroll down a little further, this is what it says. And the great dragon was thrown down, an ancient serpent who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was thrown down to earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. That's an arrival, folks. It's the arrival of the fallen ones. And things could get really, really interesting. So hang on to your hats, because trouble's coming, I got a feeling. Don't you think, Larry?
Hang on to your hats and fasten that seatbelt, folks.
Yeah, we're kind of going to be on a roller coaster, I think, from now on, where things are going to start really increasing, and you're going to hear stuff that you would have never believed you could hear, and a lot going on in Washington. Anyway, thanks a lot, Larry, for coming on, and thanks, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you again either Wednesday or Friday. Good night, everyone.